Welcome to the Mortgage Mayhem Podcast, where the mortgage game meets real life, real talk, and a whole lot of chaos. We break down the deals, the drama, and the data behind the scenes of real estate finance, with a twist of street smarts, savvy, and a touch of madness. Before we dive in, here's the deal: the Mortgage Mayhem Podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. We are not attorneys, CPAs, or licensed financial advisors, and nothing you hear on this show should be taken as legal, financial.
Yes. Welcome back to the Mortgage Mayhem Podcast, where these headlines meet home loans and mayhem meets money. Welcome back. We had a great show yesterday. Show ran almost 2 hours. So we was hot and heavy yesterday, but we're back today. We got some heavy hot takes. Hilarious lineup for you today from Trump versus Harvard, student loan collections, mortgage hacks. You already know. All the things that you need to know, you can find them right here. So don't even try to go search anywhere else. If you need the latest upcoming headlines, if you're trying to get in the money game, finance game, generational wealth game, here is the place for you to actually be. And we look forward to giving you this good old information. That's what I'm here for. So we're going to go ahead and get this started. Yesterday was Monday. Today's our last show for the week, so we want to make it impactful. And hit them likes, shares. When you hit that like button, it allows me to get into the algorithm. More people can see the show can grow. And that's what we're here for, to grow this show, allow people to come on board, get good information on Monday and Tuesday, plus reruns throughout the week. We will have yesterday's show and today's show. You will be able to catch it over the rest of the week and then on the weekend, and then we'll get back to it next Monday. So let's dive into it, folks. Glad you're here. I appreciate your time if you're watching. But headlines and hot takes for the day, we're going to jump into Trump being sued by Harvard University. We got the education department starting to get collections or begin collections on individuals. Apple's annual shareholders meeting, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some barbershop talk. We're going to talk about the father of the stab team in the Carmelo Anthony case. Go talk about that club footage in Dominican Republic that killed quite a few people. The FTC sues Uber. We're going to talk about that. We're definitely going to talk about Shannon Sharp and his new issues that he got going on. We're going to shine light on a brother that's doing some things on the educational side. We're going to talk about North Fork, Virginia, and some of the things they're doing for home buyers. And then we're going to get into the housing hacks. And today we're going to have a deep dive on Express Capital Financing. As a matter of fact, I used to actually work with Express Capital Financing. So that's going to be a good deep dive. Great company, a lot of good information. So I can't wait to, let you guys hear what they got going on. So let's get into it. Harvard University just slapped the Trump administration with a lawsuit on Monday, pushing back against its threat to cut billions in research funding as part of a campaign against top-tier schools. This lawsuit marks a serious escalation in the ongoing battle between higher education and President Trump, who determined to reclaim elite universities, while the administration frames its effort as a stand against anti-Semitism. It's also targeting programs in teaching that focus on racial diversity and gender issues. Harvard University President Alan Garber announced the lawsuit in a letter published to the school website on Monday, doubling down on the letter's sweeping and intrusive demands, which would impose unprecedented and improper control over the university the government has. In addition to the initial freeze of $2.2 billion in funding, consider taking steps to freeze an additional $1 billion in grants. Initiated lawsuits in a letter published to the school's website on Monday. Doubling down on the letter's sweeping and intrusive demands, the university has initiated numerous investigations of Harvard's operation threatening the education of international students, and announced that it is considering a revocation of Harvard's 501c3 tax-exempt status, Garber's statement said. So it looks like Harvard is, sticking to their guns. I know we were saying that it's a possibility that they may fold, because typically that's what most people do when they're battling against the government. It's almost like it's a tactic. They'll just wear you down until you see it their way. And here, Harvard's like, no. We're going to put our money where our mouth is. This is about the university. This is about the students. And we're not about to allow the government to come in and stake claim on this luxurious university that's been around since the beginning of time. It has educated some of the greatest minds in the world. So I understand where they're coming from. And this is what most universities need to do to keep their independence. You have to stand up to the bully sometimes. If you can, you should be standing up to the bully as much as possible so we can get rid of bullies. And it seems like here the administration is using bully tactics on these universities. Like they said, it's almost like Trump wants to reign over the elite universities. He claims that he went to one of these elite universities, which I think he did. But I don't know if the university showed him the kind of love as an alumnus after he left. So I think he's always, to me, seemed like he wanted to be in the upper echelon of the ruling class. And for some reason, they just treat him like a stepchild, so to speak. And I think he's always had an issue with that. because he was looked upon as a non-credible business person. So it keeps him out of, some of those circles that he himself seen as the circles to be in, during his tenure. And now he has a chance to get his get back, and he's taking it out on any and everybody. So Harvard, big ups to you. I say keep doing what you're doing. And he'll get it. He'll understand that you guys are not the ones to be, played with when it comes to educating the future generations. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, big ups to Harvard University, the president there, for sticking to your guns. So anyway, let's keep it moving. The Education Department will begin collection next month on student loans that are in default, including the garnishing of wages for millions of borrowers, officials say. The Education Department will begin collections next month on student loans that are in default, including the garnishes of wages for millions of borrowers. More than 5 million Americans who have defaulted on their federal student loans are about to face serious collection efforts. Starting next month, the U.S. Department of Education will resume collecting on their overdue debts. This includes garnishing wages and using the Treasury Department's offset program to seize money from federal sources like tax refund, government paychecks, and benefits. Roughly 5.3 borrowers are currently in default, and this move marks the end of the long period of leniency that began at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Since March 2020, the government had put a stop to any new referrals for debt collection, even for those who had already defaulted. That break is now coming to a close. Education Secretary Linda McMahon emphasized that this policy change is meant to protect taxpayers who, she says, have been unfairly covering the cost of lax student loan enforcement. American taxpayer will no longer be forced to serve as collateral for irresponsible student loan policies, she said. Starting May 5th, the Education Department will begin collecting past due balances by withholding federal payments and initiating wage garnishments. Borrowers will get a 30-day warning before wage deductions begin, giving them a short window to resolve or address the debt. Many borrowers have been anticipating this moment and are now scrambling to figure out how to handle the renewed financial pressure. The shift reflects a broader return to pre-pandemic systems and reinforces the government's intent to hold borrowers accountable for unpaid student loans. All right, so as far as that's concerned, it ain't really much you can do. You had an opportunity to have some downtime with your student loans. I would, hope that during that period of time, you were doing everything in your power to make sure that, you were able to, put yourself in a situation. So once, things actually got back to normalcy, you would be right there to, handle your business when it comes to these student loans. Because like we talked about yesterday, these student loans can affect your credit tremendously. So you got to figure out a way to get with whoever you have your student loan payments with, come up with a budget, your budget sensitive type of payment plan. You don't want to be in a situation where you can't live or eat or get from point A to point B in your vehicles because your student loan payments are so tremendous. So get with whoever that is, Sally Mae, Sandy Mae, whoever May, so many of them that you might be making or may have been making student payments towards, and see if there's a way that you guys can get on the same page. And that will allow you to at least be able to sleep at night. And then, you can budget correctly if you have the conversations with the necessary people. Don't just sit on the sidelines and make them or allow them to create your payment for you. That just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Get ahead of it, have the conversations. Like we talked about in one of the earlier episodes, everything is negotiable. Negotiate with the individuals who you owe money to, because worst case scenario, they would accept something compared to receiving nothing. So my suggestion is to pick up that phone, negotiate a payment that makes sense, and get to it and figure out a way to get those student loans paid off. So that could be a thing of the past. You can move forward and you could do the things that you want to do without having that hefty, monthly payment going to the government. Okay. So let's keep it moving. Let's bring up, no, we don't want that yet. Where is our Apple? Okay, so Apple takes a stand and Apple rejects proposal to end diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. 97% of shareholders vote to dismiss the proposal. So at the Apple's annual shareholder meeting, a proposal from the National Center for Public Policy Research aimed at ending the company's diversity, equity, and inclusion programs was overwhelmingly rejected. According to reports, 97% of the votes cast were against the measure, underscoring strong shareholder support for Apple's DEI initiatives. This outcome aligns with Apple's consistent commitment to fostering a diverse and inclusive workplace. Despite external pressures, including political influence from the previous Trump administration, Apple has maintained its DEI program. CEO Tim Cook emphasized the company's dedication to creating a culture of belonging, acknowledging that while legal considerations might necessitate some adjustments, Apple's core values remain steadfast. So, big ups to Apple, because I don't understand how other companies why they're not actually getting it. It's like they all have a knee-jerk reaction. The bully or the bullies are knocking on their door, and instead of standing up to the bullies, they're just allowing the bullies to come in and ramshack their homes. So for Apple, Tim Cook, who's been on the cutting edge of technology, we all pretty much, the majority of people are running around with the Apple products in one way or another, from phones to desktops to laptops to tablets. They are a part of our lives, our kids' lives. So for them to take the stands and stand up to these individuals that's trying to force them to only have a certain select type at the table to help make decisions and help to make the workforce a better equal workforce, this is what you have to do. You can't be scared to stand up to individuals that's trying to create a situation that can harm your bottom line for no reason. What is the real reason behind DEI? What does that do for anybody? And you could just sit back as a company right now and see the companies that's been taking a beating because of it. Look at Target. Look at other companies like, I think I've seen something where, the president was going to meet with some of these companies, and once again, the bully tactics is in, full view, because he's going to the Home Depots of the world, companies that he facilitates all type of individuals. I don't know. It comes off as a little racist to me. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I'm not gonna bite my tongue. And I don't really understand why anybody at this point is still running around being racist. People have advanced past that. People are out here, doing great things, regardless of what color they are, what kind of background they may have. And for all of a sudden this to become a hot topic, or a hot decisive issue that's separating individuals, to me is just nonsense. And I think the long game on this is, when we look back at this proposal, it is going to be a major mistake if you were one of those companies that bought in to this BS. And as you can see, the companies that are not, they're thriving. Look at Apple. Just for the fact or the sake of them taking this stance, they are going to get even more customers. They're going to be able to maintain their customers for the long game, because people of color, people who have been affected by the DEI, initiative, we're not going to forget about this. We're going to remember the companies, universities that jumped out there like it was a knee-jerk reaction and stood on the side of the bullies, or stood on the sides of the individual lawmakers who deemed that this is a necessary, thing to do to companies and universities. We're not going to forget it. And the long game is really what this is about. A lot of times companies think they can do these types of things and just get away with it, and eventually we'll forget about it. This was too big. This is too big to forget. Nobody's going to forget about this. This is going to be in the history books. And I don't think it's going to, boil over well in the history books for, this administration to come in and make this a central issue, which only divides us. I don't like anything that divides. I want it to always be an even playing field, because if you make it an even playing field, it only makes everybody that's in the game better. So, for you to do this thinking that it's going to set people of color or women or, whatever or whoever is quote unquote a part of the DEI, conversation, is only going to make these groups of people stronger, because the reason why the DEI initiatives were brought forward was because people want an even playing field. That's it. Nobody wants any handouts. Nobody wants anybody to give anybody anything. We just want an even playing field. So we had to take necessary measures in the past in order to make it an even playing field. And that was pretty much the main reason. It may be some other things that, of course, I'm not speaking on, but for the most part, it's to have an even playing field. So big ups to Apple. As a matter of fact, we got it. We just got it. We have to give them a round. Yes, they deserve it. All right, so like I said, big ups to Apple. We're going to keep our eye on that. Hopefully at some point, they don't fall victim and, shrink under pressure. Which I doubt it. Tim Cook's a big, he's big time out there. I just can't see him sinking to the pressures of a president. When you a billionaire and you got a hot company that everybody's pretty much in the ecosystem, it's hard for you to just bully that type of individual. So big ups to Apple and Tim Cook and his staff and his boards. This was a big move. 97% voted to keep it in place. So, let's give them a shout out. All right. Let's keep it moving. So, wow. This every time I see this, it's crazy. Father of staff team in Carmelo Anthony case slams protesters for exploiting his son's death. So father of staff team in the Carmelo Anthony case slams protesters for exploiting his son's death. Jeff Metcalf, father of slain teen Austin Metcalf, is speaking out against far-right protesters who rally at the scene of his father's death, at his son's death, calling them race-baiting trash, exploiting the tragedy for their own agenda. The group Protect White Americans accused authorities of supporting anti-white violence after releasing the black teen suspect on bond. Metcalf, furious that his son's image was used in flyers, rejected the group's rhetoric, saying that they don't care about either family. The protests ended in chaos with arrests and pepper spray flying. But Metcalf made one thing clear: you are part of the problem, not the solution. I can't say it any better. Everybody's innocent until proven guilty. I know sometimes we forget that, but that's the law. So he did get a bond. This still needs to go to court. It's really, unless you was actually there and seen exactly what happens, everybody's really out here just giving their own opinion based off of bits and pieces of information they've received through media outlets. You know what I'm saying? But the father, I just got to this is what America is about. You don't just buy into things that you don't believe in for the sake of making you feel warm and fuzzy about your tragic situation. Nobody wants to, it's hard to even be dealing with the tragedy. But then you got to, have individuals that you don't even know out here acting as if they're acting on your behalf. I don't know if you guys seen the video, but they called the father up. The father got on the phone, Mr. Metcalf, and he just let this guy have it, who's a part of this right wing. I'm assuming white supremacy, a white supremacist individual, and he put him to shame right there on the phone, to the point where this guy had to, say things about the father that are, number one, untrue. Number two, just to get more clickbait. These guys are out here doing these types of things to get money is really how I see it. And then there was a African-American guy who was also with this guy. And I'm like, what are you even doing? What? Protect White Americans is the name of the group, which is fine. Nobody cares, long as everybody has, a right to their own free speech. So I'm not saying that organization, I know the organization seems like it's potentially racist. I'm not sure because I haven't done any research on them. And they do have an African-American a part of it. So I don't know if they are racist to that degree, but I just think there's a better way to handle this kind of stuff when it's so sensitive. You got families involved. Everybody wish they could just, go back in time and make this situation a better situation, a better outcome, of course. But now that can't happen, all sides need to show some sensitivity. And it sounds like the Metcalfs, it sounds like the Anthonys are doing just that. They're allowing the actual court case to determine the outcome of this situation. They're not going to allow the media, they're not going to allow these fringe groups to determine, what's going to be the outcome for Mr. Anthony and the correct justice for the Metcalfs. So these groups, go sit down some damn where. Nobody wants you all in their business like this. They're already in pain. Every day they wake up. The Metcalfs, they don't have their son. The Anthonys are looking at their son who has an opportunity, well, not an opportunity, but has the potential to be in a jail cell for the rest of his life. So everybody's on edge and everybody's just trying to do the best they can in light of this situation. So they don't need any sidebars, any circus acts on the side trying to put forth an agenda that neither family wants to be a part of. Why would you put somebody's dead son or the family of the son on a flyer on a website? That's just doing too much. And Mr. Metcalf let this right-wing individual know just that yesterday, that he was doing absolutely too much and nobody asked him to do anything. But people have the right, like I said, to go out, protest, do whatever you want to do. But when you're affecting the families that's involved because you think that they want you to do their bidding for them, or they want you to go out and be their voice, that's not the case. They don't need you to be their voice. So I just really respect Mr. Metcalf for, being the type of individual that he is, to be able to understand that it only divides us when you start doing what these guys are trying to get him to do. And he's just not having it. So Mr. Metcalf, big ups to you, man. I know it's tough. It's beyond tough, but you understand, you must be a God-fearing individual, and you understand at the end of the day, everyone's going to be able to get to a solution here. And this is not the way to do it. So, like I said, big ups to Mr. Metcalf. I just pray for both families. The Anthonys and the Metcalfs, they need prayer right now. They don't need somebody running around trying to stir up some ish. You know what I'm saying? So, we just wish both families well. We'll definitely be keeping our eyes on this, this case. Not because we want the outcome. We just want justice to be served, and we want it to be fair. And hopefully that will be the case. Right? All right. So let's move on. I don't know if you guys seen this, but security guard here, as you can see, the arrow pointing towards the gentleman right there, tries to warn the band moments before that roof collapsed and killed 221 people. So the chilling new footage that emerged from Jet Set Club in Dominican Republic, capturing the moments before the roof caved in during a live performance early Tuesday morning. A security guard seen in a dark suit tried to alert the band as Marengo legend Ruby Perez, Marengo, I'm assuming legend, Ruby Perez performed for a full crowd. In the video, the guard gestures using a flashlight light to point at the roof and appears to shout a warnings seconds before the roof collapsed. The horrible incident claimed 221 lives, including Perez, former, former MLB star Octavio Dotel, and Nestle Cruz, sister of Monte Cristi, governor and ex-MLB All-Star Nelson Cruz. And the footage also shows concert goers frantically scrambling for safety as debris rained down. So it's just sad. You're just at an event, just having a good time. Your loved ones are expecting you to come home, and this happens. Anytime 220 people perish because of whatever the case, I don't know if it was neglect, too many people, but I don't understand how too many people in a venue would have a roof to collapse, but pretty sure they're doing a full investigation, and they'll get to the bottom of it. With so many people passed away, Dominican Republic, a great, country, a lot of great people. So just for them to be out at a concert, enjoying themselves, weather's great, music they love, and then this happens, tragic, and what's even more tragic is that people kind of saw what was potentially getting ready to happen prior to, and next thing you know, it's nothing you can do. Once the roof starts to cave in, the roof starts to cave in, and lives, frantically as it may have been, a lot of lives were taken in that moment. So prayers for them, prayers for the Dominican Republic, because I know small country like that, it had to just rock so many families. A lot of great artists, baseball stars, all was there enjoying themselves, and now they've been unalived. So, sorry to hear this. Hopefully they'll get to the bottom of what happened so it'll never happen again. And we gotta, these club owners, you gotta reinvest. If you need a new roof, you gotta reinvest, because when you don't and you neglect the things that need to be squared away, deferred maintenance, these are typically the types of things that happen. So hopefully this was a learning lesson for everybody and others who may have or may be neglecting, their clubs. You can't do that, because this is not the first time something like this has happened. So, reinvest in your business. Make sure that safety comes first is what I would say, because if not, these are the types of things that can happen. Now you got 221 people, families, loved ones, grieving behind something that I believe could have been avoided. So let's just say prayers for, that's a lot of people to perish in one setting. So let's just give a blanket prayer to all that's involved. And, like I say, help country like Dominican Republic rebuild, and make sure that safety is something that they can just kind of move around their country, and make sure that other venues like this one don't have these kind of issues, right? All right, so let's keep it moving. So the FTC sues Uber, says company charged customers a fee for their subscription service, Uber One, without their consent. The Federal Trade Commission has filed a lawsuit against Uber, accusing the company of misleading users about its Uber One subscription and making it difficult to cancel. The suit claims Uber violated federal consumer protection laws by charging customers without consent and hiding key subscription details. The FTC alleges Uber promoted Uber One, which costs $9.99 a month or $96 a year, with vague promises of savings without clearly disclosing the cost. It also claims users were charged before their billing date and faced unnecessary hurdles when trying to cancel, with some even being charged after cancellation. This marks the first FTC action under President Trump's second term, with Chair Andrew Ferguson signaling that big tech will remain a priority. Uber denies the allegation, stating that its sign-up and cancellation processes are simple and legal. The company currently has around 30 million Uber One subscribers. Uber spokesman Noah Edwardson said the company believes the courts will side with them. CEO Dara Krasnowski, who has previously showed support for Trump's administration, emphasized earlier this year that Uber aims to engage cooperatively with governments worldwide. Okay, so Uber, love me some Uber. I'm pretty sure all of us do at this point. But if they're doing things that they're not supposed to be doing, I'm always customer based. I was just talking to one of my boys today. We're getting ready to close on a loan for his. And one of the, processors wasn't returning calls or wasn't giving him the level of customer service that not only he deserves, but everybody deserves. And we're just kind of, we don't understand, like, why is it so hard to get good customer service? So in this case with Uber, I just think, if you're giving someone a premium service, and things aren't going to always be perfect. And these could be some isolated incidents, of course. But if not, and the government does have a case, then, like other companies, you're going to have to pay Uber. And don't be having these subscriptions. It's so crazy now. You got to be careful, guys, when you're, buying into these subscriptions. You mess around and look up, you have 30 subscriptions, $300-400 a month just in subscriptions. So make sure you do your due diligence on these subscriptions, understand what you're actually getting. And if it's worth it, then subscribe. And if during that process, if things aren't going the way you thought they would be going, then unsubscribe and make sure that you do it in a timely fashion where no one has any excuse for you not being able to unsubscribe, because you did it in a timely manner. That way you can check back to make sure that it was done, and then they can't be taking money out of your account unnecessarily, right? So that's really the moral of that story. If you're up to some shenanigans, pay. If you're not, it's isolated incidents, then let that be known. Hopefully that'll come out in the case, because once the government get on your head, although Uber is Uber 30 million subscribers at $9.99 a month, a lot of ching-a-ling. It's a lot of ching-a-ling on top of everything else, all the other revenue streams that come from Uber. You got to be fair to your customers. You wouldn't be, just think about it, you wouldn't be able to have 30 million subscribers if your customers didn't believe in your platform. So just because you have one of almost a monopoly on, ride sharing, doesn't mean you can, start to commit bad customer service. That's not going to work, because when you do that, you find yourself in this situation being sued by the FTC. And, once the FTC gets on your back, you in court, you spending money, you paying the top lawyers. So was it really worth it? Couldn't you have seen this coming? If you're getting complaints, you seeing complaints, then you would think whoever's in charge of making sure that when these types of complaints come through, they get handled. Whoever that person is, that person might need to be fired. Because at the end of the day, it's up to them to make sure that Uber doesn't find themselves in this kind of situation. Who couldn't correct these mistakes? Like, why are you allowing these types of little things to slip through the cracks to the point now you got to go spend millions to show that was just what it was, a couple isolated situations slipping through the cracks. But that's why you got to go to trial now, because we don't know now if it was isolated. This just could be a part of your practice. And if that's the case, you need to be smacked down and don't let it happen again. Because every time you let it happen, you're going to find yourself in these kind of situations. So not just the Uber, but all companies, take heed. That's kind of what I'll say to that. Right. All right, let's keep it moving. This is a big topic right here. Tony Bugsby, the legendary Tony Bugsby law firm, is reportedly helping a Jane Doe file a sexual assault lawsuit against Shannon Sharp. Women claim Shannon was physically and emotionally abusive up until January 2025. That's crazy. That is insane, Shannon, if that's true. So details are now emerging about the sexual assault lawsuits filed against Shannon Sharp. The woman, who goes by Jane Doe, claims she met Shannon at a gym in LA in 2023 when she was only 19. Shannon was reportedly 56 at the time. From there, they got into a consensual relationship, but as times went on, she claims it allegedly turned physically and emotionally abusive. According to the recently filed lawsuit, Jane Doe alleges that during her 2-year relationship with Shannon, he would exhibit controlling and manipulating behavior. She claims things became turbulent between the two shortly after Shannon was caught on live having sex with a woman named Michelle. She says when she confronted Shannon about it, he became irate and told her he could do whatever he wanted to do. Then shortly after, he allegedly broke into her apartment to show her that what Doe wanted was of no moment, that Sharp would get what he wanted when he wanted it. Plaintiff tried sharing her locations with friends from her iPhone just in case, the lawsuit states. But Sharp saw her doing this. The moment he realized what she was doing, he grabbed her by the neck and told her, "If you ever do that again, I will bleeping kill you." Then in October 2024, Shannon allegedly violently sexually assaulted and anally, I don't want to say what that word is, ape plaintiff 2 different times in Las Vegas, Nevada, blatantly ignoring her request for him to stop. He did it again in January. Jane claimed she was crying and sobbing during the alleged assault, but Shannon continued. As we previously reported, the woman is asking for $50 million in damages. The woman is also being represented by Tony Bugsby Law Firm. So anybody that knows Tony Bugsby, He's doing a lot of stuff on the Diddy case. Speaking of the Diddy case, if you guys want a for real, just like breakdown of everything Diddy, you should go check out my boy, the Flow Show Unfiltered podcast. He breaks it down regularly. He's been breaking it down now for a year. He's gonna have detailed breakdown during the Diddy case. But yeah, if you want to get, it's the Flow Show, no filter. It's on all the podcast platforms. My guy, been knowing him a lot. He's transferred from being an investor, got into the social media game, doing very well. It's helped me out tremendously in the space. But me and that guy, we used to do millions and millions of dollars in in real estate. And then he just stopped it and got into this social media game, and now he's pretty much blowing up. So check him out when you get a chance if you want to get information on anything Diddy. But in this case, Bugsby's known for, picking up these type of cases, helping, Jane Doe's, whether, it to be true or not true. He's a big time attorney, and Shannon has his hands full with this for sure. But, if you're not guilty, then you really shouldn't have anything to worry about. It is the age of, women stepping up and, speaking their truth. But also it's the world of men being able to prove their innocence. Shannon had replied. I seen it late, so I wasn't able to, bring up his reply, but it looked like it was text messages from this young lady being very aggressive, and it didn't seem like what she's saying is really what's going on. Seems like everything is consensual, but once again, we don't know who Jane Doe is. We don't know where those text messages came from, so we're gonna have to let this play out. It looks like nothing's really happening to Shannon on the home front, his businesses, his podcast, him being on ESPN. As of yesterday, I saw him still on ESPN. I haven't had a chance to listen to him and kind of get his side of the story because it just came from out of nowhere on Monday. And it's just been up and down everybody's timeline ever since. So, like I said, once again, you're innocent until you're proven guilty. So sounds like this is going to play out in the courts. It seems like Bugsby has got him another victim that he can, go after one of these big time superstars. And, a lot of people say Bugsby be out for the money. But you never know. You just don't know what's really going on. So it's always a little bit of a gray area. But nobody needs this. And if Shannon, if you are out there acting a fool, bro, come on, man. You half 100, number one. You got all the money in the world. What in the heck are you taking anything from any woman for if this is true? Allegedly. If you're allegedly taking or doing these things to women, then, if it's really truly the case, then, your punishment is coming, but it seems like, Shannon has a good moral compass. I know sometimes this celebrity can, make you kind of get outside of who you really and truly are. And hopefully that's not the case. Shannon, you seem like a good guy. But, you're on the clock, buddy. You're on the clock. So let's keep an eye on that. As other things occur, we'll bring it back and we'll talk about it and, give my opinion about it. But as of right now, Shannon Sharpe is innocent until proven guilty. These kind of cases occur sometimes. They are official, and then sometimes they're money grabs. Of course, the individuals who are being sued always say that they're money grabs, and they could be. You never know. It's that they know you got 30, 40, 50, 60 million. It's a possibility that somebody could be trying to come get some of that. So, or it's a possibility that you did what they said you did. So until we get to the bottom of it, it's going to be the back and forth. Bugsby's going to, he's going to heat it up. And of course, Shan is going to defend himself to the bitter end. So let's keep our eye on it, and we'll see what happens. All right, let's keep it moving. All right, so I always like to, talk about certain individuals who I think is out here in the community doing some big things. And I came across this one right here. Black-owned community college startup campus raises $46 million in Series B funding, bringing its total investment to over $100 million. See this guy right here? Yeah, he out here doing his big one. So Campus, an online community college, has announced a $46 million Series B investment, bringing its total amount raised to $100 million. Founded by Tade Orenke, Campus offers students live classes with top professors from institutions like Stanford, UCLA, and Howard, as well as wraparound support like on-demand tutoring and personal success coaching. The Series B funding round was led by General Catalyst. Previous investors include OpenAI founder Sam Altman and Discord founder Jason Citron. Campus has created a model that is rooted in the rigor and legacy of American higher education, with the benefit of technology and innovation that students will require, to thrive in an increasingly competitive global economy. Ken Chenault, chairman and managing director, General Catalyst, said. So, man, I just brought this up. Tate, who's the actual founder of this university, online university, these are the things that, we should be celebrating, because for individual to have the mindset to create something like this, link up with some of the big dogs who can help them, bring in the funds in order to get it off the ground, in order for it to be successful, in order to bring other successful people on board, to help people who can't afford to just go off and, have the income and the money they need to go to these universities, where you can remain at home, get a 2-year degree from a credible online university. You don't even have, most of this stuff at these schools are online anyway. You barely have to go on campus anymore in order to, be in a classroom to learn. Everything's via Zoom and, whatever platform a university may be using in order to get the information out to their clients or out to their students. And this guy is stepping up, and he's letting it be known of the individuals that believe in him, believe in his product, And I just love to see these types of things occur because it's innovative, is new. You got, top-notch professors from, Howard, HBCU, Stanford, Harvard, just UCLA, some of the brightest of minds being able to educate people, while they're in the comfort of their homes, is a grand idea. So we definitely wanted to bring this gentleman up to the stage. He, like I said, Tade, he don't know me, I don't know him, but to see him thriving and thriving, that's what it's all about at the end of the day. Striving and thriving. Um, and that's exactly what he's doing. He's putting himself in a position to educate America, educate individuals who, like I say, may not be able to get out to different community colleges, or may not even think that that's a possibility. And now this guy's out here doing the work on the front end, making sure that all his ducks in line. So once it's actually a thing, he could just get to educate. So we're gonna keep an eye on that. I'll keep an eye and make sure that as things progress, we'll bring that back up at a later date and just kind of look at his progress in hopes that he can, meet his goals, tend to his mission, and allow individuals to be a part of his dreams, which in turn can allow them to get to their dreams. So big up to my guy Tade. Like I said, I don't know him, he don't know me, but hopefully at some point my voice can be a little bigger, and when we shine the spotlight on these individuals, we can start creating some strategic relationships, along the way. So once again, Tay, good job, my friend. Good job. All right. So let's keep it moving. Norfolk, Virginia is offering $60,000 towards a down payment and closing costs on a home purchase that will be fully forgiven if you agree to live in the property for 10 years. Y'all hear that? $60K towards a down payment and closing costs, right? I mean, that's huge. So how it works is they're offering eligible home buyers up to $60,000 in assistance towards purchasing a home with no repayment required, as long as a few conditions are met. To qualify, buyers must purchase a home within Norfolk city limits, live in the home as their primary residence for at least 10 years, and agree not to rent it out during that period. The $60,000 is forgiven after 10 years. A 10-year residency requirement is met, effectively giving homeowners immediate equity in their property. While the city does recoup some of the investment over time through real estate and personal property taxes, the upfront benefit to buyers is significant, offering a rare opportunity for long-term stability and wealth building through home ownership. So once again, Virginia, Norfolk, they're putting their money where their mouth is. $60,000 for a down payment assistance. I mean, you're looking at $200,000-300,000, maybe $400,000 home. You go through FHA, 3.5% down. I mean, you can really get to it. If you want to live in the Norfolk, Virginia area, which is a nice area. And it looks like this particular area, if you're in the city limit, this particular program, if you're in the city limits, you qualify. Of course, there's some other things like credit, you got to have a job, so on and so forth, is involved. But if more communities did this, I hope more cities, states take a page out of Norfolk's book and start, getting these type of programs implemented to build back these communities that have been gutted out because of layoffs, because of drugs, because of things that has the city depressed for whatever reason, but the neighborhoods are still good. You can even look at, tearing houses down, rebuilding them, and using this as your down payment for your new build. So there's a lot of strategies you can implement when you got your own money to put down, but then you got an extra 60,000 over here that can assist. So when I saw this, I was like, let me bring this to the forefront, because maybe other city officials might be looking at something like this and, can figure out or get with the folks in Norfolk, see how they went about doing this, and they can implement this in their own cities. Because from what I could tell, it's an investment, but it's a smart investment, because how the city determines, or from what I can tell, how they're going to get their money back is through property taxes. They may take a little bit of here, a little bit of that, and allow you to be able to do this, but at the same time, they're able to recoup, these. It's just a win-win. It's just a public, private relationship that makes sense. So I think others should, step up and try to do the same thing if possible. So we'll kind of pay a little bit more close attention. I might even do a little bit deep dive on it, and find out exactly who and what this program is. Maybe we can bring them up, have them talk about it, things of that nature. As time goes on, as I build, we're definitely going to have guests. We're definitely going to have, some of the greatest mind that's in this space to chop it up with me, talk about, some things that I may not even be privy to, but privy to so many relationships with so many check writers that, as time goes on, we're going to be bringing up some elite individuals that I'll be interviewing, and they'll be breaking things down. So I look forward to that. So we'll take a look at Norfolk and see if that's a possibility, here in the near future. All right. Oh, we're going to talk about some mortgage hacks right here, but I wanted to bring this up just for some fun. My fraternity brothers, Flint alumni chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi, Saturday, May 3rd, they're doing a Kappa Derby Day party. Derby dress, attire recommended, best dress contest, and it's going to be held at the Soothing Tunes nightclub at 1408 Hempfield Road, Flint, Michigan, 48507. Music by Timeless Entertainment. Food will be provided, and there will be a cash bar, $30 per person. You can RSVP via Eventbrite by May 1st, 2026 at 2025K. Kappa Derby Party.eventbrite.com. Boys, looking smooth. It should be a great evening or day party, so to speak. So ladies, you get the hats. Men, you could get your suit, get your derby suits, and come out and have a good time. Once again, the men of the Flint alumni chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi Incorporated will be having a Kappa Derby Day party, from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, May 3rd, 2025. No one asked me to do this. I just, felt like this would be, a form of advertising to kind of help bring people out if you're not doing anything on Saturday from 1 to 8, because it's going to be a nice event. Like I said, food will be provided. There will be a cash bar. Music is by Timeless Entertainment. They're great. So get your girl, get your wife, get your husbands, whoever. Get your Kentucky Derby gear out the closet. Get your hats. And come on out. It's going to be a great event, the Kappa Derby Day Party. And that's, again, Saturday, May 3rd, 2025. Couple weeks. All right? All right, let's keep it moving. Let's talk about some mortgage hacks, right? Let's talk about our first mortgage real estate hack. We kind of talked about it a little bit in our last episode about house hack with a duplex or a triplex. Basically, you live in one unit and rent out the others. And why it works is because your tenants cover most or all of your mortgage while you build equity living rent-free. And once again, you could go get an FHA loan, which allows 3.5% down on multifamilies up to 4 units. You hear what I said? Why it works? Your tenant covers most or all of your mortgage while you build equity living rent-free. Right? That's the key right there. Living rent-free and you're building equity. Generational wealth. Generational wealth. All right. The second hack is to use seller concessions to lower your interest rate. All right. Negotiate for the seller to buy down your mortgage rate. Why it works is because in a buyer's market, sellers are more willing to offer credits. Use those credits to reduce your interest rate with a permanent or a temporary buy down. So when I'm doing a loan for someone and the rates like right now could be, in the 7s, and they want to get it down into the 6s, they have an opportunity to buy down the rate. And how that works is we'll usually charge them half a point in order to be able to get that rate from a 7% down into the 6% range. We offer it on pretty much all our loan products, right? So what they're saying, instead of you having to come out of pocket to buy that rate down, you get with the seller and say, hey, seller, I need a seller concession, say whatever 1% is to buy that down. Can you give me seller concession credit for $5,000, which will buy the rate down where you don't have to come out of pocket. It comes out of the seller side and you can get to the rate that you're looking to get to. So this is a phenomenal idea that a lot of times people don't even use. But yeah, buying your rate down is a thing. And this is a great way to do that because you don't have to come out of pocket like normally you would, right? So remember, use seller concessions to lower your interest rate. Great, great hack. All right. The next hack is invest in opportunity zones for tax breaks. The hack is buy properties in designated opportunity zones for major capital gains tax advantages. And why it works, you can defer and reduce taxes on previous gains while potentially eliminating new gains entirely after a 10-year hold. So this is just a tax play. And opportunity zones is great because you'll find out a lot of times that's where a lot of the inventory is. So seek out opportunity zones and see if you can get involved because they're great for tax breaks. Like I said, when you buy a property in a designated opportunity zone, you end up getting major capital gain tax advantages, right? So you can defer and reduce taxes on previous gains while potentially eliminating new gains entirely after you hold the property for 10 years. Great hack, great hack. All right. So the last hack is buy the ugly home in the right location. The hack: look for the worst house in the best neighborhoods and renovate it. Why it works? You can force appreciation quickly, build instant equity, and boost your return on your investment far more than buying a turnkey property at market value. So this is the name of the game. This is what we do here. We help investors, fix and flip, fix and hold. And that's what it's about: finding distressed properties in good areas, rehabbing them, and being able to either cash out, make a significant profit, or being able to refinance and hold the property into your portfolio long term. The key to it is, a lot of time investors come to me and they kind of be in areas that, the areas aren't bad areas, but there's no comps for you, and no real estate is selling. You want to go to areas where real estate is selling. You can pull up comparables or have your realtor pull up comparables to make sure that it makes sense for you to buy in that particular area. And a lot of times people don't really understand it. They think they got to go and buy these 5, 10,000, 20,000, 30, 40,000 properties. And to be honest with you, as far as financing concerns, we can't even do a loan that's under 75,000. So at least be over 75,000. So, when you're talking to realtors, find out what areas are hot areas. And when I say hot areas, areas that real estate is selling on a regular basis. Not the real estate a property hasn't sold in this particular area in the past year. No, you want to stay away from those areas because they're not up to the standards that's needed at that point in order for homes to be sold. So you go to the areas where the houses are. They don't have to be mansions. They don't have to be $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 homes. The real play is, picking them up for about 100, 110, putting like 40, 50 in them. And the ARV after repair value is anywhere between, 200, 210,000, because the rule of thumb is on any fix and flip, you want to at least make 50,000. You know what I'm saying? That's usually the profit margin that makes the most sense, right? So this is a great hack as well. Finding properties that no one's paying attention to, and you can see them. You can just roll through areas where, homes are selling, and look at the grass. The grass haven't been cut. Look at the windows. You will start seeing all kind of notes in the windows. And typically those notes are from the bank, and they're there to, warn people, number one, that the property is vacant. You could be, prosecuted if you trespass on the property. But the main thing is it has the contact of the bank who you can reach out to and start negotiating to see if you can purchase that property. Or call a realtor and say, hey, I'm at so-and-so. Is this property available? Can you give me some more information? And typically, a realtor can get off in the MLS and find out who the contact person is. And then you can start communicating directly with them. So yeah, those are some great hacks. Hopefully you guys understand that the information that I'm giving you, if you really take heed to it, it's going to allow you to, get in the game and stay in the game. And we're not going anywhere. So we're going to be here. We're going to keep talking about it. We're going to keep talking about it. I'm going to keep bringing you different hacks every day. Well, not every day, but every time I'm here on the mic. And at some point, you guys are going to start listening, and then you're going to go out and start executing. And then you're going to be able to come back to me and give me, a great success story that I could talk to the audience about. So I'm looking forward to that. I know it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. All right. So next, we're going to get off into our deep dive. We're going to bring our deep dive individuals up, my correspondents. I love them. Today, we're going to talk about Express Capital Financing. I think you guys, hopefully you got your pens and pads available, because they're getting ready to give you guys a lot of good information on this company. And I used to be affiliated with this company, did millions with them. So they're a great company. And, once we get done, once they get done, then we'll talk about it a little bit. And then we're going to get out of here, and we're going to, come back next week and do it all over again. All right. So let's bring them up and let's allow them to give us some great information on Express Capital Financing. All right. All right.
Okay, so you're here to get smart fast about real estate investment financing.
Yeah, sounds about right.
All right, well, that's what we're doing today.
Yeah.
We're going to take a deep dive into Express Capital Financing,
Yeah.
looking at, all the information they give us, about their loans, how they do things, and what makes them
different. Yeah.
a little different. Yeah.
Mhm.
So we're going to cut through all the noise and get to the essentials so you know what's going on without
The
getting
weeds, right?
lost to the weeds. Exactly. And we're talking about loans from $150K all the way up to $10 million,
Wow.
which is
That's a huge range.
it's a big range.
Yeah.
They say they've got over 2,500 happy clients and over $1 billion in funded projects. So they've definitely done some business. And then this is interesting. They mentioned a 95% application approval rate.
Okay, so 95% approval rate. That's pretty high.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. You kind of wonder what their approach is that allows for such a high approval rate. Maybe they're focusing on specific types of borrowers or properties, or maybe their risk assessment looks beyond the, typical traditional metrics.
Yeah.
It's definitely something to keep in mind as we sort of look at, what they're offering.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's unpack, what they actually do offer. They list quite a few different loan programs.
Mm-hmm.
They've got fix and flip loans, DSCR loans, DSCR portfolio loans, multifamily and mixed use loans, bridge loans,
Okay.
ground up construction loans, full doc commercial mortgages, and lead doc commercial mortgages.
Wow. That's a lot.
It's a lot, right? And
Okay.
when you see, that it seems like they're trying to hit a lot of different investment strategies
You're right.
within the commercial real estate space.
Exactly. And I think, the key word here for you, the listener, is commercial.
Yeah.
So this is not like your typical residential mortgages. We're talking financing for things like, income generating properties, maybe development projects, larger scale ventures.
Right.
And the fact that they have specific programs like DSCR loans,
Mhm.
which, by the way, stands for debt service coverage ratio, meaning the loan approval is largely based on the property's cash flow.
Oh, interesting.
And then even the distinction between full doc versus lead doc commercial mortgages, where lead doc, typically involves less stringent income verification,
Right.
all that tells you that they're really trying to meet diverse needs within that commercial sector.
Absolutely. Okay. So they've got this menu laid out now. What are they saying? What are they highlighting as their advantages?
Yeah.
They talk a lot about their loans being fast, flexible, and reliable,
Of course.
which are all words, you want to hear as an investor.
Absolutely. That's what you want, right?
Yeah. So they emphasize quick funding and they say you can seize opportunities with unmatched speed.
Yeah. Time is money in real estate.
Exactly.
So when they emphasize that quick funding, it really speaks to the urgency that often comes with real estate deals. Properties can go under contract very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So having that financing in place rapidly can be a huge advantage.
Huge advantage.
Yeah.
Okay. So then they talk about maximum leverage. And they say maximize your real estate portfolio effortlessly with higher leverage.
Right.
So when we talk about leverage, what's the core concept there?
So leverage, put very simply, it's basically using borrowed funds to increase the potential return on your investment.
Okay.
So higher leverage means you're putting less of your own capital into the deal, which, can free up your money for other investments,
Right.
which potentially can amplify your overall returns.
But you're also amplifying the risk, right?
Exactly. Leverage works both ways. It can magnify losses if the investment doesn't perform as expected.
Right.
And this often, ties back into the loan to value ratio. So how much of the property's value that loan covers. So for instance, like a high leverage loan, might have an 80% loan to value ratio, meaning you're only putting down 20%
Oh, okay.
of the purchase price.
Got it. Okay. So third main point, unmatched flexibility.
Oh,
They're promising tailored loans that flexibly adapt to your needs and goals.
yeah, that sounds pretty good.
So what might that actually look like, for an investor?
So flexibility can mean a few different things. It could mean things like adaptable repayment schedules,
Okay.
maybe the ability to structure the loan in a way that aligns with like the projected income from the property.
Right.
Or, maybe they're a little bit more willing to consider unique property types or borrower situations that like a traditional lender
Right.
might be a little wary of.
Yeah.
Like they explicitly mention working with investors who have less than perfect credit scores,
Interesting.
unique property types, or unconventional financial situations. So
Mm.
that really highlights that, aspect of broader accessibility and maybe like a more, individualized approach.
Yeah, that's really interesting that they're more open to those deals that might not
Yeah, outside the box.
fall outside the box.
Exactly.
And they specifically mention personalized loan structures based on an individual assessment. So it's not one size fits all.
Yeah, it really suggests that they have a more in-depth consultative process where they're really trying to understand like the specifics of each investment
Right.
and tailor the financing accordingly. So it's not just, plugging numbers into a formula. They're really trying to understand the deal.
Okay, so someone's listening to this and they're like, all right, this sounds good. How does this actually work?
Yeah.
What do I do? So they lay out these 4 steps.
Yeah.
First one, discuss your deal and goals by connecting with a dedicated loan officer.
Mm-hmm.
So that seems like, your initial point of contact.
Yeah, definitely that initial discussion, it's super important for both sides.
Mhm.
The investor gets to lay out the project details, their financial goals, their timeline.
Mm-hmm.
And then for express capital financing, it gives them, a preliminary understanding of, is this project feasible?
Right.
What's the investor's, strategy?
And I like that they emphasize that dedicated loan officer.
Yeah.
You've got your point person.
You have one person to contact throughout the entire process.
Exactly.
Right, which is,
Much easier.
yeah, definitely streamlines communication.
Okay, step 2, get a customized quote
Okay.
where they prepare a personalized loan quote specifically for your project.
Right. So this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where the actual numbers
Yeah.
come into play.
This is what you care about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It should clearly outline, the proposed loan amount, the interest rate,
Mm-hmm.
any associated fees, the repayment terms, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And again, the fact that they're highlighting it as personalized reinforces that idea of,
Less flexibility.
yeah, that flexibility and tailoring the loan
Yeah.
to the specific deal.
Okay, step 3, document collection and review.
Oh,
Paperwork.
which they say is streamlined,
Streamline.
hassle-free.
Yeah. I mean, streamlining that process is, it's a big plus, especially for like experienced investors
Mhm.
who might be, juggling multiple projects.
Right. Or for anyone who just, values their time,
Yeah.
wants to be efficient.
Right.
But I think the key question here is like, what does streamlined actually mean in
Exactly.
practice? What is the typical documentation required?
Yeah.
What are their average processing?
Okay. And then finally, step 4,
Right.
you've secured funding. It's time to get excited about your project becoming a reality.
Congratulations.
Right.
Hopefully that's the outcome.
That's the goal.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's interesting that they, the simplicity of these 4 steps, it's very clear,
Easy.
easy. It's meant to be reassuring.
It is.
And I think, that transparency throughout, these steps
Yeah.
is essential for building that trust with potential borrowers.
Okay, so let's look a little bit closer at Express Capital Financing, the company itself.
Okay.
They call themselves one of the fastest growing direct nationwide hard money lenders.
Okay.
So what does hard money lender typically signify?
All right. So hard money lenders, generally they prioritize the asset itself, the real estate as like the primary security for the loan. So
Okay.
they're not solely focusing on, the borrower's credit history or, those traditional financial metrics.
No.
They often provide shorter term loans and the interest rates might be a little higher compared to, your typical bank loan.
Right.
But that reflects, that potentially higher risk
Mm-hmm.
and that speed of funding that they offer. And then the word direct
Yep.
indicates that they're lending their own capital,
Okay.
which can sometimes lead to quicker decision making and more flexible terms.
So they're not beholden to, a big bank.
Right, exactly.
Okay. And then they say specializing in both short-term and long-term asset-based commercial real estate loans.
Okay.
So it's not just quick flips.
Yeah, that's important to note. Offering both short-term and long-term financing suggests that they can really cater to a wider spectrum of investment strategies.
Right.
From, a rapid renovation and resale to, longer-term buy and hold scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that, asset-based emphasis just reinforces that the value and potential of the property itself
Right.
is a key factor in their lending decisions.
Makes sense. Okay. And then they're very proud of their consultative approach, focusing on understanding individual investor needs.
Yeah.
So this kind of ties back into what we were talking about earlier about those personalized loan structures.
Right, exactly. A consultative approach implies that there's a real in-depth dialogue happening between the lender and the borrower. So they're not just, looking at a credit score and saying yes or no.
Yeah.
They're trying to understand, the specifics of the project, the investor's experience, their long-term goals,
Right.
rather than just, trying to shove them into
One box.
some pre-existing box or loan product.
Yeah. And then they highlight their unique industry knowledge, integrity, and unwavering determination.
Yeah. I mean, trust and a sense of aligned goals are so crucial in any financial relationship,
Absolutely.
especially in real estate where, we're talking about a lot of money here.
Right.
So, that unique industry knowledge suggests that they, have a deep understanding of the commercial real estate market
Mm-hmm.
and, can maybe offer insights that go beyond just providing the funds.
Yeah. And then they have this whole section called Insights and Resources,
Oh, interesting.
where they talk about, powerful deal calculators.
Yeah. Okay.
Thought-provoking blogs, exclusive events and webinars,
Nice.
and trusted affiliate partners. So they're giving you a lot more than just...
Yeah, it's like a whole ecosystem.
It is,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that can be really valuable for investors at any level.
Yeah, absolutely. Those deal calculators can help, quickly analyze potential investment opportunities.
Mhm.
Blogs can offer insights into current market dynamics.
Yeah.
And those events and webinars, can provide great networking opportunities.
Right.
And then also just, having those trusted affiliate partners is great for connecting investors with other professionals. They might need like attorneys,
Right.
contractors,
Insurance.
insurance, all that.
Exactly. So it seems like they're really trying to build, a community and
Yeah, it shows a commitment to supporting their clients throughout the entire,
the whole journey.
investment journey. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they included a testimonial from a guy named Joseph M.,
Okay.
who talks about Express Capital Financing, providing this agile solution for a client whose business was expanding
Mm-hmm.
and they needed a bigger space, but a traditional bank loan wasn't working out.
Interesting.
So it's a real world example of
Flexibility.
that flexibility they talk about.
Yeah. And, those testimonials are great because it's, real people
Real people.
saying, this company helped me achieve this goal.
Yeah.
So, in this case, it really underscores that ability to provide financing solutions, even when those more, conventional avenues. Yeah.
Might not be available.
So someone's listening to all this and they're thinking, okay, I'm interested.
Right.
What do I do?
Yeah.
What's the next step?
So there's a few different ways to engage.
Yeah.
You can apply for financing directly through their website.
Okay.
They have a short online form. It's a pretty low commitment way to,
Yeah, just test the waters.
just see what's up.
Yeah.
If you want more, personalized guidance,
Mhm.
You can always talk to a loan officer directly.
Okay.
They also have resources like pre-qualification,
Okay.
which can give you an idea of your potential borrowing capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And they provide multiple ways to get in touch, phone number, email address.
Mm-hmm.
They list their physical office locations, New York and New Jersey.
Okay.
And then, of course, you can always sign up for their newsletter to
Right.
stay informed about, potential real estate opportunities and market updates.
Okay, great. So to summarize our deep dive into Express Capital Financing, based on what they've told us.
They're saying that they're a nationwide direct hard money lender specializing in commercial real estate.
Mm-hmm.
They offer a wide range of programs from fix and flip to multifamily to ground up construction.
Yep.
And their big selling points seem to be speed, flexibility, and that personalized approach to lending.
Right.
And they really seem to be trying to hit, a broad range of investors, including those who might not.
Yeah, who maybe aren't the typical borrower.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And they're really pushing that streamlined funding process and all those resources
Absolutely.
for investors.
Yep, that seems to be, like you said, their key differentiator, that speed, that flexibility, that personalized approach.
Yeah, they want to be seen as that responsive, adaptable financing solution.
Exactly. And particularly in situations where those things are paramount.
Right. Okay. So for you, the listener,
Yes.
think about this.
Okay.
They offer all these different loan options. They focus on tailoring solutions to your individual needs. What kind of commercial real estate project could be a good fit for a firm like this?
Yeah. What are you working on?
Yeah. Have you been considering a project?
Maybe you have something in mind.
Yeah, that this might be the answer for.
Exactly.
So think about how these kinds of financing options could open up
New doors.
new possibilities
New possibilities, exactly.
in your own investing.
Yeah. Think outside the box.
Think outside the bank.
Think outside the bank. Exactly.
All right. Well, that's our deep dive into Express Capital Financing.
I hope that was helpful.
Hopefully you learned something.
Definitely.
And we'll see you next time for another deep dive.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay, bye.
All right, we're back. So that was Express Capital Financing. Like I said, they're one of I think they was in the top 5 on the Forbes list for private hard money lenders out there. Like I said, I was in partnership with them for almost 2 years. Did a lot of deals with them prior to me being a partner with them as a broker. And then they managed to have a conversation with me, and we were able to actually become partners at some point. And probably as early part of this year, we ended that partnership. But nothing but great things to say. The owner, it's family owned. The owner and his sons are the ones who own the business. So they got a personalized touch that's available. They're right there in Brooklyn, and they have an office in New Jersey as well. They get loans closed. They are one of those lenders that when you bring them a deal, they do everything in their power to make sure that deal gets to the closing table. They will be a great source for you. If you have any questions about the company itself, feel free to reach out to me, DM me. I could give you more feedback on them. And like I said in a couple other episodes, if you got any questions or you're looking to get into the real estate game and you don't know where to start, feel free to DM me at any time, and we can kind of talk it out and see if there's a solution for you, which I know it is, because there's a million solutions out there for individuals that's trying to be in this game. Hopefully you can become one of them. It's a very great game to be in. And one of these days we're going to have an episode where we just breaking down how you can become a broker and, stay in the current positions that you're in. You can work your full-time job and can make some extra good money, just by referring individuals to people like myself, or you can become an actual broker yourself and have a brokerage business. It's a great business to have. You can make a lot of money, anywhere between 1% to 3% on transactions. Typical transactions are anywhere between 150 to 200. So if you charge 1 point on 100,000, that's a nice little payday for you. Or if you charge a point on a $500,000, that's a nice little payday for you. 5,000. If you get $1 million transaction, then you're looking at 1% of that million, which is 10,000. So you could get to 10,000 easily with $1 million worth of business. That could be one deal, that could be a couple deals. And really all you do is make sure that the individuals qualify on the front end, and you get it over to a company like Express Capital, company like Mines, and you're able to, get that commission without technically having to do much work outside of, gathering documents, things of that nature. So we'll have a full breakdown of how to go about doing that at some point here. But we're at the end of the show. Once again, we almost hit that 2-hour mark. It's been great, hanging out with you guys for the past 2 days. I love doing this. We'll be back next Monday, same time, same bat channel, same Mayhem channel. But this is the Mortgage Mayhem Podcast. And, this is where we come on Mondays and Tuesdays and break down what's going on in the industry, break down what's going on in the world, break down what's going on right here in the United States. We're just going to keep you guys informed. We're going to be able to give you a lot of information, if you're really paying attention, that you can walk away with and go out into the marketplace and start, moving on deals immediately. And then you have me right here via DM, where if you got any questions or concerns about anything that you're trying to do, you can just reach out to me and I'll get right back to you and give you the information that you're looking for. But until next time, I wish everybody well. Hope you guys have a great week, a great weekend coming up. And I look forward to seeing you guys again on Monday. All right, I'm out.